Hello and good evening. How are you doing, guys? It's nice to see you around, and there's actually a couple of people already waiting. So we're gonna give it a minute or two before we jump into NodeRED itself and start the live coding session. Thanks so much for joining me in. And as I mentioned that on social media, it is a beginners friendly. Let me just post it to a social media. I completely forgot that set up. That's done. That we're getting started. So today we're gonna be talking NodeRED, doing NodeRED, and I'm gonna be explaining how to take advantage of NodeRED in home automation. A lot of you probably already heard about NodeRED, and some of you probably are using it, and some of you probably hesitate to give it a go, or maybe are terrified that they're gonna do something wrong. Don't be. NodeRED is actually as complicated as you would like it to be. So me, even though I've been doing NodeRED for a long time and I know my ways around it, I can still make it very complicated to myself, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not, but I also can achieve simple automations very easily, and this is the flexibility. I absolutely love it. So hello, Jose, and Raspi, and James, and Vladimir. How are you doing, guys? I hope you have a pleasant evening. Before we start, while you're here, just let me know, have you started NodeRED? Have you tried it? And especially if you're new to NodeRED, say on the chat, let me know on the chat, what are the difficulties or what you're struggling with. I'll be going through several things over this tutorial, and I will try to focus on those problems that you guys are having so I could explain them on examples that I have. Today we're gonna do some lights, because I think lights are quite good to kind of illustrate what you can do with it. We're not going to be just turning them on and off, but we're gonna take it a little bit further. It's not going to be a super simple tutorial. However, I'm going to explain that extensively so you could kind of grasp how you should be working on it. Now, don't worry, there is more than one way to skin the cat, so there is no right or wrong in NodeRED. If your final creation works, it's a right way. I mean, like, yes, you can always optimize the code, but let's face it, you're gonna run it on Raspberry Pi 4, and you're not going to stress Raspberry Pi 4 to the point where it just breaks. That's not going to happen. So whatever you're gonna do, if it works, it's the right way. Hello, Smart Denim, how are you doing? All right, so in some way here, I think, yeah, I have some lights set up. I've got this lovely thing. I actually didn't write about this yet. This is a Livarno Lux remote I got from Lidl. I think with set of lights, it was about less than £15, which is very attractive. It's hooked up via Zigbee. I'm going to be using Zigbee, so because it's easy to use, but you can apply this knowledge to pretty much everything. And in here, I have my IKEA lamp setup. Now, I'm going to be obviously walking through some basics and explaining what you should be doing with it, but as of now, it's linked with my coordinator. It's in here, so it's linked with my coordinator on my test server, and it doesn't work, right? We're going to make it work, and we're going to be trying to do some interesting things. All my Home Assistant automations are NodeRED. And just to highlight this, like, I appreciate what people are doing with Home Assistant and stuff like that. I don't personally hate it or have anything against it. I don't use it. So if you're gonna have any questions about Home Assistant, I'm no authority on that subject. And personally, I never needed it, so that's one of the reasons I don't personally use it. But I have absolutely nothing against you trying it, giving it a go, and using it or running it alongside NodeRED, because this is also possible. And hello to Mike, and I said hello to James. Yes, I did. And to Mercury and to AFP. How are you doing, guys? Tell me your experiences about the NodeRED, and let's get started, because we already 3 minutes in, and I think it's time to get started. So if you want to know a bit more about the IKEA bulb in question, then I need to learn how to type. Then this is the IKEA protocol you can use and what information you can get out of it. You can read that, but I'm going to be explaining that live anyway. So right now on my test server, I just done a bit of a basic. Don't worry, I will be covering this in a second, so we're going to be taking steps by steps. If you are completely new to NodeRED, you have to have you have to really know two concepts. First concept is a concept of variable. Now, if you've never been programming before, variable it's like a drawer. You have a drawer, you name it something, you put stuff in it, and it sits there until you call it. And whatever's in a drawer, you're gonna just refer it to a drawer 1, drawer 2. So that's your variable. And that concept you should be really familiar with. Another concept is a concept of a message object or message object that it's basically used to transfer the data from one node to another. So if I'm going to create a very basic, just explain this. This is the most basic node that you can have. So let's create a object, and I'm just going to say hello. It's going to be a very, very simple object. Now, when I press the button, you'll see what happened. I've sent a message from this instance, from this input node to a message debug node. And I've sent an object. I didn't just send hello. I've sent entire object. And what is object? Object is some sort of construct. And me as a foreigner, it took me a moment to realize what exactly object is, right? Because, you know, it's a different language and you might be in the same page. So object is a construct. And that object, like a physical object, has some properties and the ways you can describe it. So for example, every object would have a color, right? So you have, I don't know, you have a mug with a coffee, and that mug has a color in here, right? It's kind of like creamy color. It's a mug and it's a creamy in color. And in here I have a 360 camera. It's black and it's a camera. It's an object we would call camera. So object contains an information that you want to store in it. So in these two examples, I've used this, which is an object type camera. So I could have, like, for example, a type object, and I would say this is camera, and I say the type object, this is mug. But both would say the same property in the same case because I'm interested in color. So I would put object type color. So I would add color, and that would have a property. One would have that creamy color and one black. Now, when you do that, you can include that in an object. And as you can see, the default object is message. Payload is actually one of the properties already. If I'm going to go to a debug node and change it to a complete message object, so the way the debug information is displayed in this section, you'll notice that the way it displays the information is completely different. So now you'll see that we have an object. This is object and message, right? And in this object, we have first property, which is message ID. So each individual message, it's going to have its own ID. It's still a message. And then it has a payload. Payload is, we named it a payload. It's a property, and it's what kind of information we want to send further. You can add to this easily. So you can go to here and you can add another property. So let's say I'll add a message, and it's going to have a color in it. Now when I'm going to deploy this and send, right, you'll receive, I create a new property, and this property isn't part of the payload because I decided that this is going to be a completely separate property. And this is one of the biggest, I think, keys to understanding NodeRED, the structure of your message object. So most of things that works natively with NodeRED or being written from NodeRED will contain that information stored in a payload. So because you can nest objects, you can do something like this. So we have a payload, and I will create another object. And the objects are, in this regard, in NodeRED, they are basically JSON. I have a guide to JSON. I can post it in here for you as well. So if you want to learn a little bit more about structure of JSON, I have it in here, but don't worry, I'll be covering this as I go along. So in here, I can create a new object inside a payload. So let's do that. Now, ignore the definition. How you can use the visual editor if you want, but it's easier to do it in here for me, and it's going to be easier for you as well. Now you have to, inside the object, you have to name what sort of things you want to look at it. So I said that I wanted to specify color, so I could show the difference. So I can say color, right? And then name this color. Now the name is just a string. Like I said, for this purpose, you don't really have to know the types of different variables. It's irrelevant. But I'm gonna say blue, so you can see a difference. And that's it. We're pretty much done. You've defined a property, and you define what the property has, like what kind of property it is. So in this case, it's blue, right? So we are done. And now when I'm gonna send this, you will see that our message object is still the same, but it also shows you in here that this message object has a payload which has its own properties as well. And this payload in here and this color in here, they're different. Now what's interesting about it, if I'm gonna quickly open a function node and I'll show you something. Now this window comes with a couple of things that will gonna make your life easier. All the messages that we're gonna, by default, unless you change it, but by default, all the messages you're gonna be handling, they're gonna be message. So that's the object, that's it. The dot notation means how deep inside this message you're gonna be reaching. If it's a one dot notation, and let's say payload, I only reach into a container payload, which I have it here, and I displayed whatever is there. So if I want to have all the information from payload, I have it now, right? If I want to reach deeper inside the message object, I do another dot, and I reach into a property, and I have another property color. And if I did that, my property color would be blue, because I've reached in here. But if I remove the payload from this and leave it as a message color, then I'm gonna have red. Now, how to easily access this for complicated, this is an easy example, but how to easily access this, it's very simple. In this area, all you have to do is look at these two options, basically. You have copy path and copy value. Now, if you copy value, you'll have a set clipboard to blue because you just copy that value. But if you copy path, you will copy the path to that value, which is payload color. And because that's inside of the message, you just created a direct link to that value. So you can, if this is complete, because this is an easy example, but if you have a payload that has a temperature and inside the temperature is in, I don't know, for the next 5 days, and it's inside the array and it's separated by another some properties, that chain of dot notation is going to be much bigger and bigger, and sometimes you can get lost in that. And I got lost a couple of times and something wasn't working for me. So the easiest way you can do it is actually go to here, just link up the debug node and look what it's in the what do you have in the debug, and just copy the path. That way you can always just access this part of the information easily. So why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because whatever you're going to use for home automation, you are most likely to manipulate that data. It's going to be a JSON of some sort, or you're going to format it into JSON to make manipulation. Now, it's not only way you can do it. You can still work with different data format. You can do XAML, you can modify the CSV files, etc., etc. But JSON is going to be most typical when you're working in NodeRED, and it's why worth learning about. Now, previously, I just touched really briefly on variables, and I did that for one specific reason. NodeRED allows you to store those variables for later use, and this is very important to keep persistence of something. Now, if you want to turn the lights on, you probably, apart from turning the lights on, you probably want to store that information later, either to display it on a dashboard or to manipulate it or update another sources. So you can do it on the go, which means you can pass the information. Let's say I would press this button and I would switch on the light, right? So I'm switching on the light, message goes to here, switches the light, and that's done. And at this point, NodeRED has no idea what just happened and what color the light is. But you can opt out and do something else. You can store that information in a variable. And those variables are quite important because they let you access this information from different levels. And we define 3 different levels in NodeRED. If you jump in here, you've got context. Context can replace basically with word variable. And there are 3 levels of this. There is a node, flow, and global. Now, what is a node context? This is a node. Everything, this is a function node to be precise, and everything that is inside the node context. It's not being shared with anything else. So if I go to functions, whatever I'm going to save as a node variable for this one, it's not going to be available in this one. So if I'm going to use a node context and save that my light is blue, right? This node, I can't access this. I cannot access this directly. I would have to save it up and go for somewhere else. So that's the first context. I'm gonna touch on how to do it in a second, so don't worry. The second level, it's level higher, is flow. What is flow? You can see in here in the top, we have a flow tool, right? This is our flow tool. You can change the name now if you want, or you can even close it if you're in a beta, so you can close those without terminating your automations. And that level variable will share everything, all the variables, with whatever you have in here. So every node in here will be able to gain access to whatever you save as a flow variable. And it's great because if this node's gonna save this information as a flow variable, then suddenly everything else can read that in this flow and I can refer to it. So for example, if node 1 have the information that my light is blue and want to synchronize the other light to be the same color when I'm turning it on, when it's being turned on, it will check, what color is this light? Oh, it's blue. So I'm going to set this one to blue and execute it. And that way, you just synchronize your lights to two colors. And it's a very simple concept, right? You just didn't have to really do that much, and you will be able to set it this way. And you don't have to link the lights in a group. I know you could achieve this with a group in Zigbee or something like that and do it this way, but also there is a reason behind you might do it this way if you don't want to do it all the time. So this is something you wouldn't be able to do it if you assign them to a group. Let's say you want this light to only change the color to a specific color when, I don't know, when it's night and when these lights are being used as a mood lighting and they don't sync up with the main light. That's the idea. It's your automation. You want to have it personal, and grouping this and putting them in single group would combat that. You'd have to establish a new group, etc., and direct different groups at the different times. Lastly, there is a global variable, and global means everything. So everything in your every single flow in your NodeRED have access to this variable, and it's great for stuff like API keys or some global things that you want everything to to have access to. One of these I have, for example, my coordinates, because many different flows can use my coordinates for something, or information about whether it's a night or day, and you can use that across. You don't have to calculate that for every single flow. You can just save it as a global and do it. Now, apology for basic question. Does NodeRED has its own internal database forever, or does it use external? Now, the NodeRED has a database that stores all the variables, and it saves I believe every 30 seconds that take a snapshot of it and saves it. So if your Raspberry Pi crashes the last 30 seconds and last whatever had been written to that context store has been set. Now, by default, I don't think this is enabled, but I have a tutorial for that, guys. So if you want to learn more about this, I'll also give you a tutorial on that. Reserve variables probably is a better search term, and I'll show you how to do it. Okay. Now, and that's going to be probably enough theory, and we can start actually doing stuff, because I've been talking for the last 10 minutes and I think it's time to get a hands-on experience of how to work it. Right. I will be getting into the questions as well, so if you have anything you want to say or any type of questions, just you keep putting them on the chat. I'll be reading them from time to time and adjust my tutorial so you could kind of understand. Okay, so I've prepared a couple of things and I know they look scary. I'm using MQTT. MQTT is basically a server client architecture. So NodeRED is kind of a client. It's not a server, even though we're going to be using it as a server. It configures Mosquito server in this case that runs on my Raspberry Pi, but it is a client, and that's why you have MQTT in and out, and that means that whatever you're going to be sending, you're going to be sending to the server. Server is going to ping back it to device where it's supposed to go, and that information is just going to work like this, and the server is going to be this middleman for relaying information. Now I already assigned those two information here. Now if I'm gonna take this delete. Okay, never mind. Let's take a debug, and I'll link it to my remote control. We're gonna go to the debug, and now when I press the, let me just give you an overview of what I'm doing. I have this lovely remote in here, right? Now when I press one of the buttons, I'm gonna get messages from what I did with it. And you can see it straight away. I'm not going to cover how to add the MQTT devices and stuff like that, or Zigbee to MQTT. I have tutorials for that, so you can look it up on my website. We're going to just focus on controlling stuff. So you will see that I've just sent a message, just the way I've told you I would send the message, and that message just arrived, and we have an action and link quality. Action was the button I've pressed, which was off, which was top button in here, and the link quality is how well it's connected with my coordinator. If I press on, the second button, it has the same properties. It has action and it has a link quality. Now this is slightly different with a brightness values. Though brightness values can have different properties. On some way it's going to be step up brightness by X, or on some way it's going to be a timer, or someone's going to be something else. In this case, when I press on it, you'll see that I have a action step. I have a action, which basically I can just open up. So I have an action which is brightness step up, because that was a brightness up button in here. I have a step size, transition time, and link quality. Okay. Now if I press this button a little bit longer, you'll see that I have a brightness move up, and when I release it, I also have brightness stop. So this is an interesting example because it gives you a couple of different ways of working with this remote. Now you can toggle it. So if I'm gonna do this, each time I press the button, I get a new message. I need to move the camera slightly to the side so you can see it. Okay. So each time I press the button, I get a new message. But if I press it and hold it, you'll first register that I press the button down as a move up, and then I stopped it. And I can time this and use that to increment by X amount of brightness times time. So I can do basic maths and do more rapid transitions, so I don't have to iterate. It will just jump to whatever value it's needed, or will update that step by step in a kind of nice, smooth transition. So that's interesting. And obviously for the bottom button, it's going to be completely opposite. So brightness step down works exactly the same. And if I press it, I have a brightness move down and brightness stop. So now that you have all those messages, we're going to keep them in here because they are quite useful. Now, one of the things that you probably want to know before we go, let's make a very easy controller. Now, this is my IKEA bulb, right? And I follow the instructions to set up in Zigbee to MQTT, and this is a correct topic to control it. Let's just name it IKEA. Okay. Now, this is why I was telling you about the JSON and everything. Now, there is always more than one way to skin this cat. We can either make stuff that is just based on nodes, or we can make stuff with function nodes. And I'll explain you when it's comfortable to do it one way or another. If you would like to control this light, the easiest way is obviously to stock a, I want to have a switch node. Stack a switch node, and switch node, what exactly it does, it will look at the property of the message, right? And I want the property of the message is, in this case, it's action. I can actually use this to copy this and paste it here. So this is the property I want to observe, what's gonna happen, right? So if the action equals to on, and I can copy a value of this, so I'm always right about this, it's gonna go to first output. Let's add another output. So if the message payload action goes to off, I can copy that value again and just paste it here. You don't even have to type it. And same again with a property, you don't have to even generate that property. You can just click on copy path, and that's it. Done. You basically you got yourself a controller. Now, it won't work just yet because we have to format this correctly. So I need now a change node. So in here, let's name this on-off. On-off. So this is our gate that says, oh, is it on or off? If it's on, then we'll give you that nice hint in here. Then we want that our message payload, so we want to set our message payload object to be on, because that should work with this instance. And we can copy that and paste it here. Let's name it, this one was on, so we would know it. And let's name that this one's to off. And after the change, when we press the button, you'll notice that our payload is going to change. So I'm going to link it to these two, and I'm going to link it to these two, this one. Okay, let's clear this. Now, when I press the button on, nothing will happen yet because I didn't link it, but you'll notice that in here, stuff doesn't look the same. Now, in first note, in this one here, we can see this one is highlighted. My object contains action, payload, and then action, which is off. While in here, I've made all that transition, and it will go through on-off, so it's on, so it'll go, it's off, so it goes to the second gate. It will change it to a payload, and now my message payload in here, it's off. All right, so let's get rid of that. And yeah, that's connected, and that should work straight away because IKEA Lite can and Zigbee to MQTT can accept this as a payload without actually formatting this as a JSON. But we're gonna just do it in a second when we're playing with other values like brightness. So now that I connected it, I should be able to control it. Shall we try it? Yeah, there you have it. I keep forgetting that the buttons are all the way around, and for a second I was just like, did I do something wrong? No! So the off is on the top, and all is on the bottom. Right, and okay. But this is something I said, this is, this is instance. We still don't know, NodeRED doesn't know what's going on. So let's help out NodeRED. If you wanted to now store this information, you would need another change node. And that change node would take the input from both actions. So you can either put it in here or you can put it in here, it doesn't matter. But in here, just you're gonna require a single one. And we can create a variable. And I'll create a flow variable, and let's call it, IKEA Lite, right? IKEA. So you're just gonna call it IKEA. And we're gonna send it to message. And our status in payload, right? And there you have it. Now this is a very simple example. Obviously, in a flow in here, I have nothing when I refresh it. But now when I press the button, it's gonna populate this information with the current state. You can see that the light is off, and in here I should have a property of my light off. And I can access this. I can get this information from somewhere else. So for example, I can quickly create a very simple node that will confirm that this is flow variable, and that I can use it elsewhere. So I can set my message payload to flow, because this is our flow, right? And it's named IKEA. So when I press the button, my message payload will turn into off. Let's try out. There you have it. It's working. I can now transfer the state of this light elsewhere. Now, that is one way to skin the cat. Now, very often you'll see me in my tutorials using function nodes, because it's sometimes easier to write a bit of a code than do all of this. Because while it's working for one single light, when you're getting something more sophisticated, and you can see a couple of different examples in here, it gets a little bit more advanced, or maybe more complicated to trace what you're doing if if you're trying to do everything in flows. A lot of things it is possible to be done this way with flows only, almost without coding, but it's worth knowing small shorthands and how to make your life easier. So for example, if I wanted to recreate this thing with a single node, I could either take this, right, go and make myself a subflow and create a subflow. And that would take all of this, put it here, add inputs, one input, and add one output. Where's output? Output one. Deploy. And now I have a subflow I could just use. This is a subflow for one. And if I replace this with a subflow, it should work just the same. So let's test it out. So this is on, and this is on, off. Still working. But that's what it does. That's pretty much just hides things out. It doesn't make them simple, because if you want to edit it, you have to still go in here and do it yourself. So that hides things out, and you can basically merge things that you either are very convoluted or you want to reuse. And I would strongly recommend you not to hide the code, but create subflows for things that you want to reuse only, because that's going to get on handy. Now there's more to subflows than just hiding stuff, because you can set properties of subflow itself and make them really useful, but this is not something we're going to cover. So another thing that you can do is actually write a tiny bit of code that will do that for you. So when you receive a message, the message comes in a payload, so you can store this in a variable. Let's say I mentioned I want to have a variable which is called data. So that's this drawer that I'm going to name data, and whatever is in the data, whatever is there in the message, I'm just going to draw it, store it in a drawer. And I do that by assigning the value from the payload. Okay, so now everything is in data. And because data is an object, I can access the same data inside that, or the same values inside that data object, just as I did with message object. There is absolutely no difference between data as an object or message as an object. So if I want to have a value of my light, and when I was pressing the button, I was getting information from a payload. Let's have it displayed in here so you can see it. Do it really quick. So when I was pressing the button, I was getting information in here. So now that information is, instead of a message, it's stored in a data. So if I want to access it, all I have to do is data dot an action, and that becomes the value of here, right? So now that I've stored that whatever was in the payload into data, I can use that to create a condition. So if whatever is in the data action equals to off, let's say, and this is a string, so I have to mark it as a string, then I want to turn my lights off. So I'm gonna assign message payload to off. Otherwise, I will assign to on. And that will work. That will already work. I don't have to do anything fancy. If I remove this and pin it in here, that will already work. See? Now, if you want to update that flow, it's simple as well, because all you have to do at the end of it is go flow, set, where we're setting, like here, what we're setting. You can either do it by message payload or you can do it data action. The correct way is to do it data action in this case. And now our variable also will update. And this is why it's worth using sometimes function nodes. So when I press it now, let's turn it off. Oh, What did I break something? Did I break it? Or did I press the wrong button? Oh, I broke something. Oh, that's exciting. What did I break? Who's gonna answer this? What did I've missed something simple. Else message on. Oh, the battery died. I just noticed that the light is not coming up. Oh, that's unlucky. Okay, let me just check about the battery. Yeah, I was not expecting that one. Where do I have? I have some batteries here, I think. In here. Ah, here. Well, that was unexpected. That's the worst possible moments for the battery to die. Ah, now it's working. You can see the light went off. So, what was it? The light was off, and that should update to light was on. Yeah, it's there. Okay, so that's working, and this is why you would use function node, because sometimes stuff is easier because you can replace this with this node, all of this, and you can replace much more and make it more complicated. So when you manipulate your data, when you're doing home automation node, right, there's a couple of things to remember. First, how you want to organize your data and how you want to store it. Now, storing it like this, it's probably not very useful because it doesn't. It just gives us a light. It doesn't have, but the light has so much more properties. Now, in here, I have already MQTT node set up to read those properties. So let's have a look and see what the light is telling us when we do those actions, right? So let's go to debug, delete these, and let's see what happens when I toggle the light. I've got a lot of information here, guys. This is something we can work with. So let's go in here and actually set it as a parsed JSON object, so it's a little bit more visible. That will change this. This is a string into JSON automatically. So let's do just that, and let's toggle it again. And now we can work it. So you can see we have a bit of information in here available. So you have information about current brightness. We have information about current color, which is provided to you as a hue, saturation, X and Y. The color mode is set to X and Y. The link quality is 129. There is a state on. There is an update available for the firmware, which I can perform, but I'm not going to. But there's a lot of information, and actually, we can store this information very easily. What we have to do is just link this in here. And let's do it this way. So instead of storing just data action, let's move it to the beginning. And let's store our message payload. What that will do, it will take all that information, store it in our flow variable, so you can access it anytime you want. So now when I go to my context, you'll see that it's still the old-fashioned on. When I toggle it and trigger something, this will change to entire object. So now we know exactly what our bulb is doing. And that was simple. That was just plugging one thing and changing one thing. And that's why NodeRED is so flexible, because once you get something sorted, to add tiny little bit extra, it honestly doesn't take that much. It just takes a little bit of practice and getting used to it. So right now I'm storing that entire object inside my variable, and I can access this. I can get information in the second node. Let's say I want to store that data from IKEA. I want to get that, so flow get IKEA. And I want to display myself. Let's say I want to set my message payload. I want this to tell me what is the current hue value, okay? Let's go to hue value. So the way I would do it, I know that's going to be stored in data. And I go here, hue, copy path, dot color hue, and I'm done. So now when I'm triggering this, and go here, delete this. I want to know what is the hue of my bulb. The hue is 293. Let's verify this. Refresh this. the hue is 293, and now you can share this information around, so you can do something extra with it. You can share it also to another flow. So if you, for example, use a link in and out nodes, that will let you send that information either between here as a hidden line, so it doesn't get messy. It basically means that whatever information you're going to send here, it's going to end up in here. But I can move this to another flow and share that information or trigger something else in that flow. So that's very useful. Okay. And another thing is, since I promised you that I'm not going to only do a code, you can do exactly the same thing using this flow. So for example, you have a set in here. We want to set message payload to, well, that can actually, I wonder, to the value of flow IKEA. I never actually did that. Let's see if this is gonna work. I don't think that's gonna work because you can assign entire. I would have to do it twice, but I'm just curious if I can access this value like this. I never tried it, so we're gonna both find out if this actually would work. So can I access this? Yes, I can. Ha! This is a great shortcut, guy. I always loaded the IKEA flow to message payload first, and then extract it to the hue. So it's a very handy shortcut that I didn't know about, and I've learned something new. Now where were we? Okay, we were accessing this, and I wasn't sure whether we can access it this way, and I'm really happy I can, and I'm actually ashamed that I didn't try it earlier. Okay, so we were doing this. Now we can do actually quite fun things that now we know how to access those information. Now, to change the brightness and color, we just have to format the information according to IKEA. Now I have this bright up already, so we know what exactly IKEA is requesting. So we'll have to format the state of the bulb and the payload of it, and add one of those information in here. I already prepared them, so I don't have to type it, all of that. And you can submit that information as a JSON formatted value. So if you want, so you can do red, green, blue. That should be working. So if I'm gonna click on that information in here as a red, green, blue values, you should say change the color to red. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but this is red. Now you can also format this differently. Now as a X and Y, so basically there is a graph, and on the graph you have all the colors, and the X and Y just points out the color on that graph. So you can do it this way, and I think that's going to change it to blue, not purple. So it's now kind of like purplish. You can see my hand reflections being purplish. Next up, we have another way we can define color, which is hex, which is something you know, that's from internet, right? You can just go to hex generator, use the color picker, and do the same way. And this is a different kind of purple. So there are multiple ways you can work with different devices, and it's all about formatting that information in the correct way. So in order for us to do it, we can do it in either using nodes or using functions. So that's going to be up to you. In here you'll see that each time I was composing a JSON, and you can either go to a visual editor, which will allow you to kind of grasp a little bit better what you're doing, or you can go to the main JSON editor, which is just basic text file formatted to a JSON standard. And JSON is really easy to read when you think about it. If I wanted to quickly show you how this looks like, I would format it this way, and you'll see that first object, the first kind of stage of the object contains state, brightness, transition, and color. And inside the color, we have another object which contains following properties R, G, and B. And this is how you can kind of read it, and just pay attention to numbers of brackets, and you kind of gonna have your way around it. One of the things that you have to remember is that the last value doesn't have a comma. So if you put a comma, you instantly notice that there is a bad string, because the last value never have a comma. So if I was adding something extra, like let's say, I don't know, a battery, and added battery, I don't know, 100, this wouldn't work because I have to add the comma after the last value. And this is not this one because I've added it outside of the brackets. I would have to add the comma here. So this is a quick tip on handling JSONs and looking for why your JSON isn't working. Just check the numbers of brackets and check the numbers of commas. Right, so let's do something useful. Let's start with some brightness. Brightness is exciting, right? So inside the brightness we have where's my thing? Brightness spans from 0 to 255. So 255 is going to be the most brightness. Have you try something purely code-based instead of NodeRED, like Python? Yeah, I don't use a single system. Now, I have stuff that just uses C++, and for example, that's everything that's on either Arduino or ESP controllers. So I use that. If you've been on the last live stream, I was using UIFlow, so that was blocky with MicroPython. I also use Python, especially in EventGhost. Do I have an EventGhost instance here? I should. Is it going to? Oh yes, it's here. So you can use that in EventGhost. It has a Python as an action, so you can drop an action. Python commands, and this is great for sending requests and storing variables and doing stuff from the Windows computer to automate it. It's pretty cool. So yeah, it really depends what you want to do. I find that visual kind of thing very appealing because it's easy. It's not complicated. It's easy to get started, and it's easy to introduce yourself to coding without you like, oh no, I don't want to do it. It's terrible. I don't understand it. So yeah, let's do brightness. In order to direct brightness, we have two buttons, and we first need to decide what we want. How do you want to decide it? And because we have two actions on them, so we can either do step brightness or we can hold it, we have to kind of figure out how to do it. Now, maybe before we can actually do the brightness, I'll show you a little trick. Now that we can store information about what is the state, let's operate this bulb with a single button. Because, you know, why use two buttons for the same action if we can use one? So this is why I was introducing the variables. Let's clean this up a little bit, okay? In here, we already know what state is the bulb. So when I press any of the buttons, one or this one, first one or second one, all I have to do is just read that state and do the opposite thing, right? So we had this node that was already handling this. And instead of having this written like that, what we can do is, first, let's find out what kind of state we have. So let's get rid of this. Oh, we can modify it. Because this is stored in our update, where is this color object? State on. We can do like this, where we can use our new stuff, and we can set it. We can get that information, I apologize. Let's get that information and set it in state. So variable state, we're going to have a variable state, and we're going to read that variable and store it there. So we don't need this part, right? Now we know that what is our current state, and we want to do opposite action, right? So this one will work. We're just going to use state instead. So our state is here. I'm going to get rid of that. So whatever is in state, we're going to check. If our state is off, we want our payload to be on. Otherwise, we want our payload to be off. And that's it. And now, both buttons, regardless, going to work like a toggle. Now we just have to make sure that our state updates. So when we finish this, we want to save the current state. So let's do this and then do flow set. Actually, let's add this later. So let's leave it like this so we can execute this. So that goes from our remote, goes to here, which we're gonna have a change node so you can understand what we're doing. We're gonna get information about can we just update the state? I can update the state, I guess. Let's see. I wonder if this is gonna work. I never actually tried that as well, but we're experimenting today. So I can just do flow. I think it's gonna work. Flow set, and then we're gonna update IKEA dot set. I think that's gonna work. Nice. What do you think? Since this worked, I think this one is going to work, and that value is going to update to what we wanted. It's what we set in message payload. And that should work. That's it. And now we have a toggle without this. Should we try it? Right. If I did everything correctly, when I press the button 1, it should turn it off. And if I press the 0, it should turn it on. No? 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 Okay, let's have a look what I did wrong. It's probably something I forgot to do. Let's see. I reckon it's going to be uppercase spelling. Yeah, that's what got us. So we didn't have a... when it comes to comparing stuff, we need to basically make sure that stuff is in the same case. Yeah. So basically what happens, this one sets to on should go to else, and else is off, so it doesn't turn it on. So we looped ourselves a little bit. So in order to fix it, I'm just going to quickly do a update through here. No, that's not going to work, so we've already modified it. Okay, let's quickly fix this. So you're going to set this to quickly on, this one to off, and that will fix it. Okay, sorted. I basically want to override this value right now. Okay, and now it should work. IKEA state, no IKEA set. Did I? Ah, yes. Okay, yeah, you are so correct. I completely missed that. State. Thank you for paying attention. It's easier when someone's paying attention, right, guys? Okay, that went. Oh, it's working. I can use 0. I can use 0 to turn it on and off, guys. It's like magic. Can I use 1? Oh, 1 doesn't work. Why 1 doesn't work? 1, why? What did I do wrong on 1? Let's have a look. So on 1, I'm getting obviously state on. It gets the state. State should be off by then. It overrides the state with the uppercase. I'm getting uppercase somewhere. Let's. That's the problem. Okay, let's have a look and see what's going on right now in here. This is the easiest way to double. When I press on. I'm not receiving anything right now. Why is that? I think I should do really this thing, because I have a battery kind of not not press correctly because I've changed it. Let me quickly find the back of this and make sure I don't. Now we're talking. Now we're fully prepped for this. So off is working, on is working. Off is not working on this action. So action 1 for some reason is not what we did wrong. If payload on, if state is on, we want off. Otherwise, we want value to be on, and then this one. I don't think FlowSet actually wrote this. I don't, because in here we still have it, so we can't do it this way, unfortunately, because that would change. Oh no, it did change. On and message payload, return message. Why now? When this supplies. See, I'm not getting any message right now. I'm getting message on off. Is this has a? I remember when I initially reviewed this, I had some issues like this before. This I think has some sort of memory, because this is impossible. I know I did the coding right, but it works every time I press off. I think it has some internal logic. Can I, like, how many times I can press off? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's fine. Okay. How many times I can press on? 1. That's it. Oh. Okay, so I've discovered the limitation of this. I can only press on once after I've pressed off. Otherwise it doesn't work. I don't know why, but this is some internal logic that kind of destroys it. So my coding is fine. What isn't fine is the fact that this is limited. So I still have a toggle. So I can still toggle the light and it's working with a 0. Everything works correctly. So my code is fine. This remote is weird, and I'm probably going to write a little bit more about it, because this is not a normal behavior. If I'm going to link any other button, I'm going to end up with a decent behavior on that. So, right, now that we have this, we have a toggle. Let's play with some lights, values for brightness. So we already have brightness in here, right? So we can access that brightness and figure out how we want to change it. So we can let's do a step for the brightness. Now, in order to do the step for brightness, there's a couple of things you can do. Now, each time you could iterate a value. You could get the value from here and add something to it. If you want to do it with nodes only, you would get first probably change nodes. So we're gonna issue an action. This action is gonna be, we need to filter the action first. So let's filter the action with the switch node. Our action in here is going to be, obviously, let's go to this. Let's press brightness up and see what we can filter against. So we have a step up. Let's filter against this, right? Where are my values here? What happened to my NodeRED? I usually have a way to copy this. What happened to it? I think this is a bug right now. Okay, so when our payload action equals step up, and we're gonna add it equals step down. So we have two positions. On one we're gonna be increasing value, on one we're gonna be decreasing value. So what we can do, we can read that information. So we already know that we're gonna be playing with this value, right? If we want, we can set the value up. So we need to read that value and store it somewhere. So let's create a flow. Let's say IKEA brightness. And we need to, can I do it this way? A message. We want message payload's fine. We need this one here. So we want to get the IKEA. Am I doing it wrong? From IKEA brightness. IKEA dot brightness. So we are getting this information and storing it in message payload, right? Once we've got that message payload, we want to add some information to it. And do we have maths that we can do like automatically? I've not even tried it, to be honest. I'm sure there is a way, but unfortunately, I don't think we can get away without a function node in here, because we would have to like loop or something, and that would turn it into very complicated stuff, and it's going to be quite simple. So let's do a function instead, because trust me, that's going to be very simple in the function node. So what we can do is, we know that when the message arrives, we want to get our brightness. So variable brightness equals, we're going to use our new trick, which is flow get, and what we want to get, we're going to get the IKEA dot, what we want, brightness. Okay, that's going to be our brightness. Now, if my message payload, what was it, action, right, in here, message payload action. So I can do if my message payload action equals to step up. We're gonna be adding more brightness to it, but we're gonna be only adding more brightness if our brightness, is smaller than 255. Then what we're gonna do, we're gonna take our brightness and we're gonna add, let's say 20. Oh, maybe 30 to make it a little more. Okay. Otherwise, we're gonna set our brightness to 55. Okay, that should work. So that's for brightness up. Now if you want to do brightness down, you just copy this, paste here, change this to down. And if our brightness is smaller than 0, we want to set this to 0. Or maybe no. I hate brightness going down to and turning off the light. Let's set it to 10. Otherwise, we're gonna just brightness minus 30. Should be good to go. And now, lastly, you probably want to update your flow. So let's do flow set IKEA.ness, and we want to set final brightness. I think this should work. I'll see if I have to store this in another variable, but I think this should work. Okay, let's give it a go, right? We should have a brightness now solved. Let's name it maybe brightness. Moment of truth. Sorry. That should be disconnected because right now all buttons are triggers for on and off. So let's brightness down. Let's have a look what the debug node says. Let's get the brightness here. What did I miss? Okay. Step up and step down. Nothing changes. Okay, now that I know that I've made a mistake, I'll show you how to troubleshoot your mistake. If you go in here, and let's see, you don't know if your brightness is triggering up or it's correct. So let's go in here and we're gonna be taking a node warn. This will force that value to be displayed in the console here. That's very useful. So if I'm gonna take it here, and let's say take it here, I'll know what's going on. So let's give it a go. Okay, so the brightness is not going to go any further than that. It stays at 254. Is it going down? It's not going to down. So let's investigate why the value is not going down. It's not triggering this. So let's have a look. The brightness is here when it's going down. Let's see. Okay, so I do need to store it in another variable then. So I need to do new brightness. Let's say var new brightness equals brightness minus 30. And that will work. And then I'm going to set this here. And then we will, we should really update our light bulb as well, that helps. Message payload. equals, and this time we need to do a status update because we're supplying brightness. So brightness, this, and that's gonna be new brightness. And that way our bulb should be updating. Can you do notation like that? I wasn't sure, but let's have a look. It's complaining. Because it's been assigned. It's fine. We can ignore that. But it should be working fine. Don't know if you can see it, but that's right now. It's working great. And going up. Can I like? Don't know if I can like do it passively for you to see. If I do it really quickly, you'll see the halo of it. You see, it's working fine. Okay. Yeah, you can do brie as well. You can, like, I kind of thought I can just add it like when you do iterations. So for example, if you want to do it like this, if you want to do it by one, etc. But for some reason it didn't like that. So you can either do it like on chat they said new brightness equals brightness plus 30, or as Vlad said, brightness plus 30 should work as well. So all those things could work. Okay, so we have a brightness. So this is a brightness when you when you want to press the button. But sometimes you just want to have a loop. No, what are loops? Loops basically means that you're going to do something a lot of times until there is a different message. And loops is basically, I think, the most difficult bit to do in NodeRED, because NodeRED isn't really designed for loops. And there are ways to do it there, and you can definitely come up with certain things, and I'll show you what you could do with this. You could take a couple of approaches. You can make, I've done that in the past, where you have, for example, I'll just use this one as an example, where you have a loop like that. So I'm sending a message, doing something, goes back, doing something, and it does that X amount of times until a condition is met and the loop is broken. Usually means that this has two outputs, so you have to do two outputs like this, and then when the loop is broken, the message goes through there. It is possible, you can do it. That's the one way to handle the loop. I'm going to show you in an example in a second. Another way you can handle the loop is within the node itself. You can set a node variable and do something inside while you're doing this. And I'll show you how to do it, because I think it's more convenient to do stuff like that. But for this, I'm just going to take a new value and we're going to modify this slightly. Now, when I press the button on the remote control, if we're going to clear the debug, you'll notice that if I press it, I get first move up, and then I get brightness stop. Now, this means that I can actually perform some operations while these actions happen. Coincidentally, there is a node for that as well, and node for that is you can do, I think, either with trigger or delay. I never remember which one was it. Let's see which one has it. Wait for, resend every, that's the one, that's what we want. So you can send something every X amount of seconds when something happens. And you can use that to create your loop. Now, what, for example, I could do? I could send a value that is being set to a flow variable. So, for example, if I was to take my IKEA dot brightness, I could send that every, let's say every second, to make it easy. And I will send that, so that's every second, right? So that's going to be send our brightness. Send brightness every 1 sec. So that's what it's gonna do. Now, I will need this to stop it as well. I need something to trigger this and something to stop it. Now, reset the trigger if message or message payload equals. Okay, let's do reset the trigger. So that's gonna reset it. But can we stop? Wait to be reset. Wait for. Which one we want to do? Interesting. Let's have a look how we can stop this. Reset. Message received with any timeout or repeat currently progress will be cleared and no message is triggered. So let's see how that's going to behave first, because I've not used this one. I know how to do it with the function node, but I want to discover how to do it with this one. So right now, if I'm going to go here, and this one is set every 1 second, resends every, yeah, okay. Let's see what's going to happen. I'm going to start receiving messages in here, which are basically every 1 second. Okay. Flow IKEA bright. I can't access it? I've accessed that before. What happened? Okay, so that's one of the problems to overcome. I'm pretty sure I just accessed that before here. Okay, have I misspelled something? IKEA brightness. Oh, seems alright. What did I do? Huh. Ah, that's disappointing. Well, I would have to send that. Well, we can work around this. It's not a big problem, right? I can do IKEA brightness like this, right? Deploy this. Now, first I'm gonna see what stops it. So if I started, it sends every second, and if I'm gonna send a message reset, what was it? Message reset. Message reset is set. So message reset, and let's try to do this, and that should stop this, right? So let's see if this stops. Yeah. Okay, that works. Great. So now what I can do in here, if I want, we're gonna do a new function node to show this functionality. So this is timed. Right. What's gonna happen is when brightness is pressed up, we're gonna have a switch node. We have to detect our triggers, right? So we have a switch node in here. When brightness is sent, we're gonna receive 2 different payouts. Now, first actions. First action was, what was it called? Do you remember, guys? What was it called when the brightness is pressed up? Let's quickly add it. Very quickly. So we have a move up, brightness move up. Excellent. So that's going to be action. So we have a payload action, brightness move up. Then we have a brightness stop. That's our third action. Wrong copy. So a third action, and that's going to be probably down. Now we have 3 different buttons. Well, we have 3 different buttons in theory, right? Step up. Was it step up? Hold on. Move up, stop. Move down, stop. Step up is a different action. It's for the single one. Okay, so now that we have 3 different actions, what we want to do is set policies. Now stop, the brightness stop will reset it. So we need to create our change node. We need to create reset. So this is our reset. Set. and value doesn't matter. We can just put 0, doesn't matter, as long as this is message reset. And this is why I said we are sending a message object which is has a property reset, and we are setting it to anything really, it doesn't matter to what. And that basically allows us to pause this, so we can test it now. So when I start it manually and I let go my button, it will stop. So I'm letting go button now, and that's stopped it. That works great. So now we can control our brightness. Now what we have to do really is just trigger updates to our brightness. So what we do is we're gonna have another two. We can have one function node for this. So we're gonna have a function node, and both ends gonna go to here, and then we're gonna have two conditions, right? So first, if our action here, so we can just simply copy this message, action equals brightness move down, and up. So we're going to copy it twice. And this is a string. Right? And let's open our function. Now in here, we want what we want to do. We want to iterate our brightness. So first we need to know what is our brightness. So this is easiest to do with flow get, because we already have it stored. So flow get IKEA. Yeah, IKEA dot brightness, and that's going to be in my var brightness, right? Great. So now that we have this, we can iterate it. So if the action is to increase the brightness, we can do brightness. We can do plus equals 30. But we want to work with the same principle. No, sorry, I apologize. No, this is not what we are doing this from here. We are sending brightness updates from here every 1 second. Yes, that's sorry. It's correct. We're gonna create a loop. How can I do the delay? Can I do specific delay, wait time? Let's say function node wait. I don't want to delay. I could do await sleep if I wanted to. Because what's going to happen, I want to stop the execution. I want to iterate it here and increase the brightness while I keep updating it in here. It's kind of like a neat demonstration what you can do. It's not the most practical one to do it, but it's a neat demonstration how you can achieve this, because you're going to have basically multi-threading at this point. So when we receive this, we want to get our current brightness and iterate it. Okay, let's try to have it this way. So we're gonna iterate our brightness by 1, because that's gonna happen very quickly, and we're gonna keep iterating our brightness until if equals 255. We're gonna basically break from this return message, so we can trace it. Okay, so that's gonna take a second, really, like a moment. It's gonna be quick. We're gonna delay this. Sorry, we need to do a bigger than 55, and then a equals to 55. That's what I wanted to do. No. So this is if it goes up, we're going to be iterating, and if it goes down, we're going to be decreasing the brightness. And we're going to be saving this also to our flow. So flow set IKEA dot brightness, and we're saving that to brightness. Right. So each time we change the value, we're gonna be saving it. And I probably should have removed this here before we return it, like that. Okay. And so this is gonna happen just once. Now we need to loop it. You can run function from trigger. Oh yeah, actually, that's actually that's not a bad idea. But I still need to know which one would trigger it, because I would have to have a multiple trigger, isn't it? So reset for this one, and I could do multiple triggers. Like, it's a good idea actually. It's a much better idea than I was trying to do it. I was trying to do it a bit of convoluted way. That's what you're supposed to do. So then I can... Message payload action is going to be still preserved. I think this preserves the message payload itself. So I think that's actually going to work. So that's not a bad idea. So let's do that. And to reset it, I need to just delete this, and we're going to be resetting it that way. That's what we're supposed to do, guys. I had a blind moment, and thank you very much for pointing me in the correct direction. So that way we're going to receive a message that's going to trigger this. We're going to check the brightness. We're going to start iterating the brightness. Here we're going to be decreasing the brightness. And if the brightness is smaller than 0, then we're going to be setting brightness at 0. And then we're going to be setting up thing. Now, okay. I think that should work already, I think. Yeah, we should try it. Let's see what happens. What's the worst could happen? That's the fun bit about it. Okay, so if I press and hold, we have action of undefined, so we had a problem here. Action payload, so it didn't actually carry out this action. So that's fine, because we actually can split this function into 2. And now it won't have a problem. So this one is for increasing. So move up, move down is not needed. And it's fixed. I'll fix the formatting in a moment. And this is for down. And it makes sense to connect it here and issue the payload. So message payload, we are sending brightness upgrade, right? So brightness and bright. That should solve it, I think. I believe so, maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Fingers crossed. Do I have anything else connected? I think so. No. So reset should stop this. Anything else? Just make sure there's nothing connected. It's fine. Okay, something didn't work just as well. So let's read our node. Let's read out our brightness in here. So where we iterating, I want to do node warning and bray, and see if we actually changing everything. Okay, and let's give it a go. Not set, not a number basically. What are we sending here? Because we send a message payload. Oh, dum me. We should be sending a message. Where's message? Global string. Yeah, okay, string's fine. It doesn't matter. We can send wherever we want in here. We could actually make an iterator. Oh, let's make an iterator out of it. So you could be, so in here you can have a step now. Let's do step 5, okay? And resend every 1 second enough. So that's maybe 10, since it's 1 every second. So now that's going to be our iterator. So our iterator is going to be brightness equals brightness plus message payload. Because we're going to receive this from this trigger. So that way you can dynamically change what you want to do with it. How badly you want to change this, right? Okay, so we have it here. That should work. And in here we need to just change it to a number, and we were doing 10. Right, that should work. Clear this, test it. Still not a function. Is it because it's saved to our function here? Brightness, yeah, I need to reset this value again. So bear with me 1 sec. We can do it with this node, I remember. Yeah. Oh, this one is kick off as well because we are getting this. That's going to be not a number. It's going to kick off. Ah, ugh. This one we can save this. Get IKEA state. Set IKEA state payload. Let's quickly just set our details. Ah, which one had its full? Change message payload global flow IKEA and just payload, please. Message. Great, thank you for resetting. So now when I deploy it, it will just update the values for me. Huh? It's not updated. Flow IKEA to message payload. That should be alright. Why it's not updating? Ah, I know what I've been doing. Oh, this is a button. No one says anything. I was updating a wrong bloody thing. And I need to trigger my lights. Come on, let's trigger the lights really quickly. Color bulb. Why are you not updating? Why are you not updating now? Just give me a quick update. I want to quickly. Oh. Okay. I think it's not going to update. Oh. Okay, I need to fix the update. Sorry, guys. What I did, I've overridden the bulb information with the remote information, and I cornered myself a second here. So the color bulb, it goes in here, it goes to flow IKEA message payload, that's fine, and let's just trigger a quick update. To the bulb, and I'll do the rest. Okay, we're back. All right, cool. Well, we were in this here, so switch things. I think is the iterator is working now. Let's check. Yes, it's working. I can see it going brighter and brighter. It's every 1 second. I don't know if you're gonna see the. Okay, let's dim it down a little bit. So if we want to dim it down by 50 and every 500 milliseconds, so it's a little bit quicker, we can adjust it, but it's working. So maybe how to show you this without overexposing, maybe like this. Oh, you can definitely see it. Up it goes slowly because I didn't change it. And now just to prove that I can, let's do every 500 milliseconds again. And let's do 20. It's going to be a little bit quicker and I can stop it. Maybe you'll see it. And I paused it. Can you see it like this? Let's go down. I paused it before it went all the way down. Then off. And then I'm gonna just do like 3 steps. Yeah, so it's working. So now you have a working what is it called? Dimmer on that. And that information obviously it's gonna be saved in here because we picked the update. So if you refresh it, it will give you correct brightness information, and you can share that information with anything else. So we're kind of reaching the end of the open session. It's like I said, I didn't plan exactly what I'll be doing. I knew I'm gonna be playing with the remote, so forgive the mess. But I wanted to kind of explain and kind of run through what I'm doing and steps to troubleshoot stuff. And obviously I was making mistakes as well because people do, and this is the best way to learn. I've learned a couple of things today, which I'm super grateful because it's gonna make my life a little bit easier. But yeah, if you have any questions, that's a good time to ask them about it. If you run into something, do let me know. I'll try to give you a quick hint. And also let me know what kind of bothers you about NodeRED. I might have like a more organized structure to these and run them every Friday since I've got no more job now. But then I'll prepare properly, so there'll be less guessing and kind of more walking you through a certain structure. I'll maybe plan like 2-3 lessons ahead and execute them and keep it kind of beginner friendly as well. Now, in terms of NodeRED, the sky is really your limit because you can achieve a lot of things, and function nodes are very helpful. Obviously, it requires a little bit of coding, but you can get away with a lot of these things without. And you could see even with your help, I was able to figure out a couple of things how other way you could do it. Previously, when I had this, was which function was using? Which light bulb was using this? I've wrote it for a light bulb. Oh no, dimmer. That was IKEA dimmer. IKEA. No, that was a Xiaomi dimmer or Xiaomi button. That's the one. This is the one I've used. So previously, I've used the button to do this. So that was on and off. Don't know if this is going to show. In here, I had a slightly different solution. I had a loop, basically, that would loop every 500 seconds until you release the button. And it's basically doing exactly the same thing. It's just iterating in a slightly different way, and it causes the loop. And there is a message that has the ability in here. This flow in here can be basically stopped, so I can stop the flow anytime I want. And then if that message, the control loop, doesn't have a tag with it, it will just continue to my bulb and finish updates. So that was another way to handle it. And yeah, today I've tried something new thanks to your suggestions, and it also works. So there is always more than one way to solve something. And I know that by default you'll be thinking like, yeah, but I can open the Home Assistant and there will be a slider or something, or it's already done for you. And I fully agree, you can do that. And this is a valid reason to go for Home Assistant, because if you don't want to spend some time thinking how else you could do it and where you can learn with this and how you can customize it, then fair enough. One of the things that you can't do with Home Assistant is that you can't set yourself not only different dynamic updates based on time, but different ranges. So for example, one of the biggest advantages of this is that I can set my dimmer to have a different maximum brightness during night and different maximum brightness during the day. So that way, when I'm using it, I'm not going to overcrank it and suddenly I go like in the middle of the night. And I can control how quickly this also responds. One of the nice things about IKEA light bulb is that they have a transition time. So I can pick the transition time it takes to go from one step another. So I can smooth this out even further. And those are controls that not, to my knowledge, not necessarily available on that kind of granular level in Home Assistant. Now you probably have some plugins and additional controls that you can kind of change, maybe like XAML files, because most of the Home Assistant is config based. But it's one of the really nice things about NodeRED is that granularity, that you can actually make it happen to your thing. Another thing is that it would be very difficult to make in Home Assistant is controlling the brightness of the group with different settings of the brightness for different lights. So you could pick the steps for different lights if they have different scales of luminescence and match them. So this is very difficult to do in actual Home Assistant, but you could easily do that and have those flows basically copy and paste for each light, and adjust how quickly they change and to what values. And you can trim that value at the bottom and at the top to keep the consistent levels of lights. So you don't have a light, if you set your lights to 80% and you have a 600 lumen light and 1200 lumen light, you can imagine what happens when you're going to set your group to 50% brightness. And with NodeRED, you can trim it very easily, so you can match that output without limiting maximum brightness on the other light permanently. And this is why I personally like it, because apart from solving a puzzles, which I absolutely love, and I love spending time doing that, you got those extra little bonuses that will reward your hard work and time that you're going to put into it. And obviously every time I have a tutorial, I'm going to share some basics, so you don't have to start from scratch. You can just dive into whatever I've prepared and take it and take it to the next level, to whatever you like. And I know, like, sometimes when you look at something that someone else done, it can be slightly confusing to like, oh, this is big, this is lots of different small parts and I don't understand it. Trust me, when I look back at some of these projects that I've done a year or two ago, I was like, I'm lost, because either I wasn't I'm not in the same mind frame. I don't remember what was what, and I kind of understand how you can get lost in something like that. But also, I get better at things, and I get better at organizing my work, and I get better at commenting it out and explaining. And also, each time I get better at doing stuff. So there are projects, like for example, my heating project, which has it's gonna have a 4th iteration now. I finally got my TVRs. The disappointing bit is that these are Zigbee. I'm gonna be mounting them on my 11 radiators. Now, unfortunately, the company sent me only 2, so I'm still, and cancel my order of 9. So I'm still gonna be waiting a bit until I get full of them. Then I have to bleed my radiators, put them on because I don't have correct valves. But then I'll be able to actually control the temperature in the individual rooms. So I'll be rewriting my smart home heating version 3.0 to 4.0, and it's going to be even more awesome. So that's something I'm really looking forward to, even though I know I kind of run into myself and into many corners of something not working. But NodeRED kind of helps you to dive into the automation without necessarily having a full grasp of coding, and step by step you will learn how to utilize function node to your advantage, because function node essentially replaces all the nodes that you have, and you can write a bit of a code and learn how to use it to your advantage. Now, I do have a tutorial for beginners. Why am I not typing here? So I have a 7-part tutorial for beginners, so you can take step by step, in which I explain a lot of things. Now, you probably already know why you need a server, so that's why you're here. But I would strongly recommend you to, if you're just getting started, read through it, and you will it will solidify a lot of information that I gave you in here and give you kind of like an easy take to how NodeRED works and how to work with different function nodes, how to achieve certain goals. So in here you'll learn also how to do data processing, how to connect with MQTT or HTTP requests, how to do it this way, a little bit more about function nodes and how to achieve your results in function nodes, and some tips and tricks that you can deploy to make your flows a little bit better or work a little bit faster. So it's a nice startup that kind of expands on what I've covered today, but I think those two things are well, I covered today understanding objects and understanding how you can manipulate the JSON to achieve what you want, and understanding variables. It's kind of the essence of how to process that information within home automation and achieve what you want. I have a 14 ceiling lamp called ZB to MQTT. Can I tell in a function node to set them all at brightness in one function node? Yes, you can. So if you have 14 different things, now this is gonna be strongly dependent how you're gonna set them. Now I assume you don't have a group for them, right? That's the gist of it. If you don't, the easiest way is to name them or group them. If you assign the group, then you can control the group in the ZigBee automation, and then you can simply go to your ZigBee to MQTT and do it via group. But if you don't want to do it in a group, this is a quick. Now that's going to look slightly ridiculous, but it's going to be, I think, more practical for you in the long run. If you go to setup and do this, you're going to end up with this, okay? And what it does, I think you know where I'm going with this, right? Now, in order to send messages, now if you want to send messages, the same message to a single group, there are a couple of things. Because this is what you return is an object, you can also return an array of the objects. And right now, this is an array of the object that contains a single object inside. So this is a 0, index 0. When you count stuff in computers, it usually starts from 0. That means that this message is going to go only to bulb 1. This is bulb 2. Right, and this is bulb 3. Okay. Now, if you want to send something to the second one, you do this, and you send it something to the second one. You probably want to specify the third one and the fourth one, and so this way means that you're going to send the same message to every single bulb. If you don't want to send something to the fourth one, you type in null. And if you want to send a different message to fifth one, you type in message 1, and then you specify message 1 here where it's supposed to be, right? Now, if you want a little bit more, you probably want to read this, because this contains exactly what you're looking for. How to achieve different scenarios, how to work with different multiple outputs and multiple payloads, how to issue repetitive payloads, etc. And that basically will answer your question and give you a little bit of more control, because you'll be able to send 14 updates with different colors. You can even have like a small slow animations between them if you want. So that's how you would do it. Can Home Assistant start using? When did the Home Assistant start using NodeRED? I used to just use Home. Well, it's a personal preference if you want. Like, I have my preference. I like NodeRED because, I don't know, I've started NodeRED and I never need the feel to jump into Home Assistant. I absolutely have nothing against it. It's just, yeah, I just find it cool. And I know lots of people are doing Home Assistant tutorials and they get wildly popular, like more popular than me. And I'm tempted to trust me, I'm tempted to jump on that bandwagon and have all those people that's, you know, interested in Home Assistants to kind of find me. But I just don't want to do things for popularity. I'm interested in NodeRED and I like it, so I don't mind doing it. And I never just seen any particular use for Home Assistants in my cases, so that's it. Pozdrowienia Michał z Anglii. Pozdrawiam. Hey Leroy, you right? Does your smart flow washing machine still work? Yeah, it should. It should. There is a second iteration. Someone reported a bug, which I need to look into it. Let's have a look. I had an update to this. So I've updated it this year. So if you go to my GitHub, it should be linked, I think, at the bottom. But that should work just fine. I don't see any problems with it. Let's see. I should probably link my GitHub. Let's have a look at the GitHub. That's a jest, but I want to go to my GitHub. Is it updated here? NotEnoughTECH. I don't want to I just want my profile, please. Here. NodeRED. Smart power meters, smart relay, washing machine, dishwasher. Here you go. Probably you want to get this copy. So this is going to be the latest version of it. I probably want to link this. I'll just quickly link it up in here, I think. Let's do this really quickly. Yeah, I did post. Show you how it works, how I work in action. Come on. Ta-da! There's no... Did I click on the wrong one? I think I've clicked on the wrong one. This one, I'm supposed to edit. I just assumed that was the open document. Okay, let's edit this. Since it didn't have the latest version. And it should have a correct one now. Ta-da! Sorted. Right. Yeah. Any other questions? If not, I'll be wrapping up because it's nearly 11 o'clock. I'm probably gonna make a bit of a poll what people want to see. I could alternate between NodeRED, Tasker, and maybe UI flow. I still want to finish my thermostat, which is going to be very handy. I want to add a couple of features for UI flow. I have some new stuff, like this lovely tool. It's really cool. It's battery operated, have a light. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to testing this. Also, for everyone, there's a couple of other things coming. I have some new reviews. Oh, my tracking just lost me. I need to... Hold on, zoom out. Zoom out. Zoom out. Come on, zoom out. my camera is not listening to me. Zoom out, thank you. So I have two couple devices to talk about. One is a readable. One is kind of like a remarkable, but much cheaper. I'm very interested to try this out. There's going to be more NS panel stuff. There's going to be more Zigbee stuff. And I have a couple of Zigbee devices coming. Very powerful coordinators. It's going to arrive at some point. And that's going to be there. I have Tasker tutorial incoming. And and there's some Sonos devices on the floor behind me. That I need to write about. But I still don't have enough time. Right, guys. The computer says no. Yeah, it doesn't say no. Right, I'm going to wrap it up and leave you to your beautiful evening. Yes, NS Panel actually has some news, and someone, Blackadder probably gonna know this. I don't know if someone posted that in the e-willing group. They're gonna get a what's it called, Hue support. So it's gonna be Philips Hue support. So that's a big news. So if you didn't flash your NS Panel yet, you get to test this. I don't know if I'm gonna test this because they've offered me a test for Hue, but I don't have a Hue bulb, and I don't have a Hue Smart Things or whatever it's called hub to try it out. So I'm kind of like, do I really want to buy this? So yeah, some people that has a Hue device going to be excited about it. Me personally, well, like, okay, fair enough. I'd rather flash it and use it for something else. And I know the Blackadder did kind of some work towards that, and some work towards the interface is coming up. So I'm really excited to trying out. Maybe I'll have actually a time during this weekend to see if I want to flash it. So that's fingers crossed for that. All right, guys. I appreciate you keeping my company. It's always nice to have you around, because, well, you're gonna rescue me when I get stuck on something or when I'm blind and I can't spell, and yeah, you kind of push that live coding session forward, which I always appreciate. The works is done 5 minutes ago. Oh, awesome. Well, you see, Blackadder is gonna beat me to that tutorial for sure, but I will play with it as well and share my thoughts. So that's something to look forward. Paul Hibbert hates Hue. Paul Hibbert hates a lot of things. At least I think I used to watch him a little bit more, but I think he kind of he has very I don't want to say annoying. It's just kind of like he's slightly too over the top for me to watch, and I appreciate what he's doing, but I kind of like, yeah, okay. People get tired with this, and I get tired of that, and so it's kind of like, yeah, I keep checking what he's playing with from time to time, but that's pretty much all. Hello from Germany as well. Right, okay, I'm gonna turn off my Hue lights, my Hue lights, my IKEA lights. Turn them off, and I'm gonna say my lovely bye-byes to you. Look at this mess. I've got so much stuff to... You see this? This is another project. You see this? I don't know if you were paying attention, but suddenly 7 IKEA tables appeared in that corner, because there is a reason for that. So you'll see something about 3D printing very, very soon. Right, okay, Bart, thanks so much for sticking around, guys. I do appreciate you being here, and I hope you have a lovely, lovely evening. I'm going to watch an episode or 2 of Bones, because suddenly I got hooked up on it, and yeah, and I'm gonna go to sleep because it's been a long day. I got up at 6 o'clock for work, so I'm dying. Have a good one, and see you very soon in my next video or tutorial. Bye bye, guys.